You go back 2 years ago, we were paying almost $6 a gallon for gasoline. Right now it's in the threes. Obviously we've seen a jump with the Iran conflict.
When were we paying $6?
Still 50.
What is that?
2.5 years ago.
I don't think
if
we were.
You look at,
that wasn't the average price. We are.
So when CNBC calls out your BS and you're a Republican pretending the economy is good, oh boy, things are not going well for the Republicans. Scalise, you could almost see it in his face like, wait, I'm not allowed to lie on CNBC anymore? Yeah, gas is 50 cents. What do you mean? I mean, just wild, outrageous lie after outrageous lie. But now what you're gonna find out in this story is how badly the economy is actually hurt. So yes, tell us about it.
Okay, so first let's hear more of that back and forth. That was Republican Representative Steve Scalise and Joe Kernan. So let's hear more of that conversation.
It's still gonna go lower when Iran gets resolved and the Strait of Hormuz gets open. But at the same time, did anybody want a nuclear armed Iran? I think if you ask most normal people, they would say absolutely not. When they just slaughtered 30,000 of their own people, they were about to get a nuclear weapon. And President Trump stopped that. But that's going to get resolved. President Trump's negotiating that right now.
You must have been on vacation in California. I think 2 years ago in April of 2024, we were at about 365. So we're actually above where we were then. And I'm not.
No, we were well into the fives under Biden. Well into the fives.
At one point, not 2 years ago.
Most of energy production shut down. Energy in the Gulf of America was shut down. Alaska was shut down. We opened that up, by the way, in the working families tax cut.
But 2 years ago,
that's
the average was
production now.
Exactly 2 years ago, the average was 365 to 367. And I'm not saying that $4 or whatever it is now, that the long-term goals that we're trying to accomplish in the Middle East, I'm not saying it's not worth it.
All right, well, energy prices just keep going up and up and up, and the Iran war has no end in sight. So let's check in with these oil prices. Oil prices have reached their highest levels overnight since the Iran war began, with Brent crude topping $126 per barrel before pulling back. And the average gas price was at $4.30 a gallon as of this morning, a jump of more than 7 cents from Wednesday and more than $1 above the 3.18 average from a year ago. And as you might expect, inflation overall just keeps going up and up and up. So the core personal consumption expenditures price index, which excludes food and energy, accelerated a seasonally adjusted 0.3% for the month, pushing the 12-month inflation rate to 3.2%. So core inflation hits its highest level since November of 2023, and including the volatile gas and groceries components saw higher readings, with the monthly gain at 0.7% and the annual rate hitting 3.5%. And in other economic news, we learned today that the national GDP increased by 2% in the first quarter of this year. And that is more than last quarter when GDP only rose by 1.5%. But the catch is that artificial intelligence investments is disproportionately contributing to that GDP growth. So business spending and investment drove much of the gains in the first quarter, contributing 1.5 percentage points to the total 2% GDP growth. Still, CapEx spending outside of AI-related expenditures remains more muted. And economist Heather Long put it all into perspective a little bit. She said, this is a split screen economy. Companies and investors involved in AI are on fire. Meanwhile, middle and moderate income households are struggling with high gas prices and inflation that's back at the hottest levels in 3 years. And there's one more piece of news that I wanna add in before we get to you, Cenk. Jobless claims, or the number of people who are filing for unemployment benefits, just hit a historic low. Initial claims fell by 26,000 to 189,000 in the week ended April 25, according to the Labor Department. That's data released today. The median forecast in a Bloomberg survey of economists called for 212,000 applications. And that is the lowest number of jobless claims since 1969, according to Bloomberg. And also continuing claims, a proxy for the number of people receiving benefits, dropped to 1.79 million in the previous week, the lowest in 2 years. Cenk, I wanna get your thoughts on this. I know you're not quite sold on those numbers, are you?
No, so look, I don't know if they're actually literally rigging the numbers, but I don't put it past them. Although I get that it's difficult. So maybe it's a spike up that's happening in a curious way before the crash. But I'll guarantee you a couple of things right now. We're gonna have an economic collapse. These not like all of the other numbers are disastrous. There's like one outlier saying, oh, everybody's getting hired. Everybody's getting hired. Every story we've done is like Snap lays off tons of people, Disney lays off tons of people, and they're all bragging about AI efficiency, et cetera. So the massive unemployment is around the corner, and the rest of the economy is showing it. And oil is at $140 per barrel, or that's where it's spiked to. So look, I studied economics. All of these are giant flashing red lights, warning, warning, warning. Things are about to go really poorly, and yet somehow the markets are like, no, we're at near record highs in the stock market. These lunatics in Wall Street think, oh man, everything's going great. Yeah, AI is going to lay off like 10 to 25% of all Americans, and yeah, we're about to restart bombing Iran. That's what Trump said, and we're going to start bombing their infrastructure in the oil and gas fields, and then they bomb the oil and gas fields in the Gulf. This is going to be an economic collapse that is gigantic, and they literally don't see it. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
Look, one of the biggest problems with political media right now isn't just bias. It's how quickly the same story gets spun into two completely different realities depending on who's telling it. That's why I recommend Ground News. It's a website and app that pulls together reporting from across the political spectrum so you can compare how the same story is being covered, who's covering it, and what kind of narrative they're pushing. Take this story about Pete Hegseth refusing to rule out US troops on the ground in Iran. On Ground News, you can immediately see how differently outlets frame that same development. The Daily Signal downplays the danger by stressing that this isn't Iraq and that the war won't be endless. NBC, meanwhile, focuses on the key fact that Hegseth would not rule out American boots on the ground in Iran. Same story, two completely different realities. And Ground News makes that obvious right away. You can compare headlines side by side, see the bias distribution of the coverage, check the factuality ratings of the sources, and even see who owns the outlets behind the reporting. That matters because once you understand how stories are being framed, you start to see how public consent gets manufactured. Ground News also has a blind spot feed that highlights stories that one side of the political spectrum is barely covering. So you're not just trapped inside the version of the world your algorithm wants to feed you. If you're tired of being fed somebody else's narrative, I genuinely recommend Ground News. Go to ground.news/TYT or scan the QR code. Using our link gets you 40% off Ground News Vantage plan, and you can also gift a subscription directly through Ground News.
Now, the good news is about the kind of show we do is we tell you stuff ahead of time. We don't do like, oh, well, that happened, so we'll pretend we knew. No, I'm telling you right now. And if it turns out I'm wrong and there is no collapse and Trump keeps going and the markets were right and the next 3 years are golden, we'll come back and say, Cenk, you were so wrong. That AI collapse never happened, the war collapse never happened, right? And Steve Scalise was right. You know, the ratings were about to get nukes. Totally made up. Everything in this is, by the way, Israeli propaganda to get us to stay in the war because Israel wants us to stay in the war. And so, no, you're gonna see with your own eyes that we're about to hit an economic catastrophe. And when we do, all these guys are gonna look ridiculous. And I hope you throw all those bums out, all the incumbents, not just the Republicans. The Republicans should go first. They caused this collapse. They caused this awful situation. But a lot of the corporate Democrats went along with it and haven't challenged them at all. Throw out all the bums. You're about to feel massive economic pain. And when you do, know who brought it to you. All the corrupt politicians in this country, all the corrupt mainstream media, and most of all, Israel, who demanded that we go into this war and have these skyrocketing gas prices and all the inflation it's gonna lead to. You should all be furious with Israel for causing these calamities just because they wanted further land in Lebanon, further destruction and death in the Middle East. And they demanded that we do regime changes, create a civil war where maybe millions of people will die in Iran so that Israel can be the only regional superpower. Well, they opened up Pandora's box, and every ghoul and goblin in the economic world is about to fly out of it. And when it does, remember who did this to you.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.